Hi, thank you so much for joining us today. We are so excited that you're here. My name is Abby De Silva, and I'm a content creator on the Score team. We are joined by our partner, Test Innovators, today. Sarah from the Test Innovators team is a standardized test prep expert, and I'm going to pass it along to her to introduce herself as well.
Thanks, Abby. It's a pleasure to be here today. My name is Sarah, and I'm the SAT and ACT marketing expert at Test Innovators. And today, I'm going to talk to you about the SAT and the ACT.
Thank you, Sarah. Today, we are covering how you can support 10th and 11th graders this spring. We know you're an expert in your craft, so our goal is to explore current events and counseling, provide some time saving ideas, and share some helpful tips and tools for supporting students. Test Innovators will cover ACT and SAT prep tips, including new changes to the ACT, and Score will cover ways to save time on letters of recommendation, helping students build their college lists and plan for college visits, plus financial aid. Throughout the event, we'll also be sharing how Score and Test Innovators can help you support students this spring. We've set aside 45 minutes for the event today, including 10 minutes at the end to answer your questions in the chat. If you can't stay the entire time, no worries. We'll be sending the event recording to everyone who registered for the event within 24 hours. Now, a little bit of context about Score's partnership with Test Innovators. Score's goal is to create the best in class software solutions for college search, discovery, and planning, but we know that there are other parts of the admission process where we don't have the expertise in, like test prep. That information is needed for students throughout the college prep experience, and that's where Test Innovators comes in. We want to provide experts who can share their support, technology, and expertise in areas you need support in. Test Innovators shares our mission and values, and we're so excited for you to connect with them today. Our partnership with Test Innovators is not a tech integration, so you will not see their platform in the Score network. If you want to learn more about our partnerships, you can go to score.com/partners. Now, let's jump right into it. Let's kick off the presentation by talking about some common questions students and counselors are asking right now. Score surveyed a bunch of Score students, and we saw some interesting trends in what they were saying. A lot of the questions had to do with how should I prepare for the ACT and SAT? Do I even still need to take the ACT and SAT? What are some good questions to ask at college visits? Should I go straight into a career after high school or go to college? How do I find and get scholarships? And how can I juggle classwork and extracurriculars plus college prep and all the other things on my plate? These questions are likely very familiar for you. In recent years, questions about needing to take standardized tests, going directly into a career after high school, and so on and so forth may have become more common at your school. Now, let's chat a little bit about some current events in counseling. We wanted to open the floor up to you all to talk amongst yourselves and respond to some polls about some new changes in college admissions and counseling lately. First off, how we talk about post-secondary paths. Inside Higher Ed recently found that 35% of students do not believe education after high school is necessary, and 63% of teens are open to options other than a four-year degree. This begs the question, has this changed how you approach discussing post-secondary paths with students? A poll is about to pop up on your screen. Feel free to share your thoughts in the poll or in the chat. I'm going to put myself on mute to give you all a few moments to respond and reflect on your answers. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts. It is so great to see this conversation happening. Next, let's talk about thoughts on AI. The average school student to school counselor ratio in the United States was 376 to 1 for the 2023-2024 school year. A lot of counselors are feeling overwhelmed, and AI can help with those manual tasks and other things on your plate. Are you using AI to help you in your role? If so, how often are you using AI? A poll is going to pop up on your screen, and I'll give you all a few moments to respond. Thank you so much for sharing all your insights. It's so interesting to see where everyone is in their journey with AI tools. If you have any thoughts or ideas, feel free to share them with us. We would love to hear from you. Now I'll pass it over to Sarah, who will dive into strategies for helping students prepare for standardized tests. Take it away, Sarah.
All right, let's jump into ACT and SAT prep. Let's start with a quick overview of the tests. First up is the SAT. So last year, the SAT moved to a digital format. The test is now 2 hours and 14 minutes long, not including the break. It has just 2 sections, reading and writing and math. Each section is divided into 2 modules of equal length. The SAT is a computer adaptive test. So on each section, a student's performance on Module 1 determines the level of difficulty they see on Module 2. Students receive a score for each section between 200 and 800. The 2 section scores are added together to give them a total score between 400 and 1600. The ACT is also changing this year. In its current form, the ACT is 2 hours and 55 minutes long, not including breaks or the writing section, which is optional. It has 4 sections plus that optional writing section. The 4 sections are English, math, reading, and science. Students will get a score between 1 and 36 for each of these 4 sections. They'll also get a composite score, which is the average of the 4 sections. The new version of the SAT, which you may see called the Enhanced ACT or the ACT with enhancements, is shorter with more choice and flexibility. The new core test is just 2 hours and 5 minutes long, not including the breaks. There are 3 core sections, English, math, and reading, and there are 2 optional sections, science and writing. So science is now optional. Students will receive a score between 1 and 36 for each of the 3 core sections. Their composite score will be an average of these 3 sections. If they choose to take the science section, they'll also get a score between 1 and 36 for that section. Then they'll also get a STEM score, which is the average of the science and math scores. So when is this all happening? When is the test changing? Well, ACT will be rolling out these changes over the next year. The first students to see the new version of the test will be US students taking the ACT on a computer on a standard weekend test date. Those students will see the new version starting in April. US students who are taking the test on paper and international students will see the new version starting in September. Students taking the ACT in school won't see the new version until April 2026. This past admission cycle, we saw a number of schools move back to requiring testing. So schools like Dartmouth, Harvard, Stanford, Caltech, and Yale moved back to requiring students submit test scores with their application. And so there is a bit of a trend of moving back towards requiring test scores, but most schools are still test optional. So naturally, I imagine a lot of you will get the question, do I still need to take the SAT and ACT if I'm only applying to test optional schools? And here are a few things to consider. Test optional schools still value test scores. They may not be required, but just because they're not required doesn't mean that they don't have value to the admissions process. And I encourage you all to look at what the schools who decided to return to requiring testing have said about their decision. In particular, I encourage everyone to look at Dartmouth's statement and study that they did around testing. And I know every admissions department is a little different, but essentially, the consensus seemed to be that test scores are only one part of a holistic admissions process and are viewed in the context of the rest of the application. They're more than just a number. So they're going to look at them alongside all of the other information the student provides, but the scores themselves provide valuable information about the candidate that schools, want to see and do value. Besides, admissions, strong test scores can also help make your students more competitive candidates for certain scholarships. Indeed, some scholarships require SAT or ACT scores. Test scores may also be required or encouraged for a specific major or program at a test optional school. So I always encourage students to check out the requirements of the specific major or school that they're interested in. Sometimes the larger university will be test optional, but a specific school division, major, or program within the university, for example, the School of Engineering, the School of Architecture, the nursing program, et cetera, sometimes those programs will either be test required or, quite competitive. And so, test encouraged or having strong test scores could give your students the extra edge when applying to the programs. Finally, test scores can also be used for class placement for admitted students, even at test blind schools. So even the UC Cal State system, so the University of California, California State system, which is test blind, even they use test scores for some freshman class placement. So this can be an advantage at registration in your first term. Perhaps it could save students some time and money because they can, skip a class, go right into the next level up. So if you have students who are just applying to California public schools, they don't have to worry about the test for admission. These schools are test blind. They don't look at the test scores when they're deciding on who to admit. However, the students may still want to consider taking the test for course placement purposes. And of course, having those test scores can be an advantage for any out-of-state backups. So in short, I would encourage your students to at least take the SAT or ACT. If they feel like their scores really detract from their application and they aren't applying to, one of the test required schools, they don't have to submit them, but having scores can help your students keep their options open. So where do you fit in as a counselor? What can you do? So there are 5 big ways college counselors can help their students get ready for the SAT and ACT. They can advise their students to take the right classes, encourage an early start, help combat test anxiety, provide informational resources, and offer practice opportunities. So advising your students to take the right classes. The best way to set your students up for success is by advising them to take classes that will teach them the concepts and skills they need for the SAT and ACT. For math, Algebra 1, Algebra 2, and geometry courses cover most of the content that's on the test. So, make sure your students are on track to complete these classes or their equivalents by 10th or 11th grade. For the reading section, it's important for students to have strong reading comprehension and writing composition skills. So classes that focus on reading and writing are great. So these classes can be in a variety of subject areas, such as English, literature, and history. They don't all have to be English. You could have psychology, philosophy, all sorts of classes, but classes that really place an emphasis on reading and then writing papers are excellent for building the skills students need to succeed on these tests. It's also great to encourage your students to start test prep early. Starting test prep early gives students plenty of time to study and take the test more than once. It's not necessary to finish testing before senior year, but I always think this is a great goal. If you aim to finish up testing before 12th grade, that gives you, cuts down on some stress and gives students the ability to really focus on the other parts of their applications. As I'm sure you know, the fall of senior year is stressful enough. So without having to worry about, getting the right score at the last minute, it's just a lot better if they can get some of that testing out of the way early. Of course, if a student's not done with testing before the start of senior year, it's perfectly viable to take the SAT and ACT in the fall of your senior year. It's just really nice to finish it early. So I generally like to, recommend students get started either, by taking the PSAT in October of their junior year and just using that to kick off prep, or, if a student has wrapped up their, Algebra 1, Algebra 2, and geometry courses by the end of 10th grade, starting the summer after 10th grade is also gives a great timeline and gives plenty of time for the students to get testing done early. So test anxiety is a really common problem. A lot of students face it. So how can you help with that? Well, it may seem obvious, but one of the most effective ways to combat test anxiety is just to get comfortable with the test. And the best way to do that is to take practice tests. So practice tests help students familiarize themselves with the format, style, and content of the test, in addition to getting comfortable, with the particular timing and anything that might stress them out. Another thing they can do is just come up with a plan, know what to expect on test day and come up with a plan ahead of time. So, know where they'll be taking the test. Maybe, even travel over to the test center. If it's not at your school, encourage them to, drive over the weekend before to make sure they know where it is, where to park, et cetera, et cetera. Know how long they'll be there, know what they can bring. All these things can be tremendously helpful in just making students a little more comfortable on test day. Also, just understanding that, if they are anxious about the test, they're not alone. 10 to 40% of high school students experience test anxiety. It's very common. It is a normal reaction to a high stress situation. So just letting them know that, there's nothing wrong with them. It's not unusual to feel this way. It can be helpful as well. You can also provide informational resources. As you know, students have a lot to do during 11th and 12th grade. You can help them stay organized by providing resources about the test and testing process. A great way to do this is to create an informational packet with things like test dates, registration deadlines, test format, preparation, and best practices. So it's helpful to have a few printed copies of the packet in your office so that you can have them on hand when students and families have questions about testing. I think this information is especially helpful for, families who are going through this process for the first time. Finally, counselors can also help their students by offering test practice opportunities. Because practice is the best way to build confidence and reduce anxiety, you can make a big difference by ensuring your students have access to quality practice resources. Supporting SAT and ACT practice can be as simple as recommending resources for independent study. There are a lot of practice options out there, so giving families some guidance can be very, very helpful. If you want to be more involved, you can offer in-school practice, such as hosting, a mock test or offering classes. I do want to say that there are free practice resources available through College Board and ACT, and students with fee waivers can get additional resources. At Test Innovators, we're also committed to supporting students with financial need. We work with a lot of CBOs, and we also have a practice scholarship for students with demonstrated need, as well as a few other initiatives. So if you're interested in helping out your students who may need some financial assistance with getting practice resources, I'd encourage you to get in touch with our team to learn more. And then just a little bit more about what we do here at Test Innovators. We work with schools across the country to help their students get ready for tests like the ACT and SAT. We have a self-paced practice platform that empowers students to reach their target scores by providing true to the test materials, detailed diagnostics, targeted practice, and more. And yes, we do have materials for the enhanced ACT coming very soon, so stay tuned for that. Additionally, we have a suite of educator tools that enables schools to keep track of student activity, view detailed performance analysis, and even assign homework. So whether you're running a test prep course or simply wanting to connect your students with high quality practice resources, Test Innovators can help. And that's all from me. Back to you, Abby. Thank you.
Now, onto the score portion of the presentation. First off, we're going to cover letters of recommendation. Now, we know you've got a lot on your plate with many letters of recommendation requests about to roll in. If they haven't already, you're likely thinking, how in the world will I get all of this done? The spring semester is a great time to rethink how you communicate letters of recommendation expectations to students and optimize your process to save you and your students time. Now, some tips that we would recommend are, first off, revamping your letter of recommendation questionnaire. Now, you should see a pop up on your screen right about now that'll link to a blog post including some questions that you could consider adding to your questionnaire. That way, you don't need to guess at what a student wants you to write about. Some example questions we have on there are, what is the biggest obstacle you've overcome or are facing right now in your life? Are you responsible for taking care of any siblings? Where do your parents/guardians work and what is their job description? So on and so forth. Next, we'd recommend considering going to classrooms or planning time to go to classrooms to explain the letter of recommendation process that you have established. You could even send an email letting students know this process in addition to or instead of. It just all depends on your school's culture. When you're going to classes to present this process or sending this email, feel free to share your questionnaire with students so that they have it. Lastly, please don't forget to take care of yourself. You deserve it. And the more that you fill your bucket, the more that you can share with students. If your school uses Scoir, we have a very simple tool that can help make requesting and receiving letters of recommendation even easier. Now, let's talk about call lists and visits. With the average counselor having a very large caseload nowadays, any ways to help save time or streamline communications with students can help. So, we wanted to provide some ways Scoir can help you help your students with college visits and lists, whether or not your high school has a Scoir subscription. So, if your high school isn't a Scoir customer, here's a few things that you can take advantage of. First off, students can create a free Scoir account even if your high school doesn't pay for Scoir. In a moment, you should see a pop-up on your screen with a link to Scoir so you can explore more yourself. Feel free to make a free student account in Scoir. At the end of the presentation, I'm going to be sharing my screen and walking through the Scoir student experience, so be sure to stick around if that's of interest to you. Students can also search for events and schedule college visits if they would like, or watch virtual visits and tours right in Scoir, which could be a good thing to point out to students if they have a Scoir account. We also have some resources, specifically blog posts, that you can share with students as well. We have a college visit checklist that we'd recommend checking out. Feel free to share this directly with students. It should pop up on your screen right about now. You can also subscribe to our blog. We have a lot of blog posts for counselors written by counseling experts on current events and sharing advice and tips from other counselors. We also have a lot of blog posts for students and families about all things college prep and readiness, so feel free to check those out and share them with students as well. Now, if your high school is a Scoir customer, there are a bunch of ways we can help you. Just a few quick reminders. You can collaborate with students on college lists right in Scoir, including recommending colleges to students from your Scoir account. And then students can go ahead and look at that school, decide if they want to apply, learn a little bit more about the school and whatnot. We also are always releasing new features in Scoir. We take counselor feedback very seriously, and we're always looking to improve the counselor experience. One of our newest features is called Scoir AI, or Scoir Admission Intelligence. Scoir AI is a series of tools to help balance college lists and demystify acceptance chances powered by tens of millions of de-identified outcome records. These tools provide credible, predictive insights tailored to your school inside the platform that you're already using to support effective list building and informed decision making. We recently held a training event on Score AI. If you want to check it out, it's right here and a pop up on your screen in just a moment. So now that we've covered college lists and visits, let's talk about financial aid. We'll provide some resources you can share with students so you can help them proactively answer financial aid questions they may have this spring. We know you know financial aid like the back of your hand, so that's why we wanted to pass along some resources that can help you teach students and their parents and guardians about financial aid. This is a great time of year to put financial aid on their radar and get ahead of their questions. Especially with changes to the FAFSA from the past couple of years, verification requests might come through. This article can help you guide students through that process and explains it a little bit more. Another common question we hear from students is how to get scholarships. If you're looking for a scholarships one-on-one type resource to share with students, this one may help. We are going to share a couple more resources you can pass along to students and parents and guardians and a follow-up email after this event, including comprehensive overviews of the types of financial aid available to students. And it should pop up on your screen right now as well. All right. Next, I'm going to walk through the Score platform from the student perspective. Even if you're not a Score customer, feel free to sign up for a free student account to see what this experience is like. Now I'm going to do a quick walkthrough of the Score student experience. Any student can create a free Score account even if their high school isn't a Score customer. In Score, students can discover colleges with filtered searches, explore careers based on their interests, sign up for events and programs, and more. Once you conduct a college search, you can filter by academic focus, location, degree type, size, extracurriculars, and more. You can also check out a college's page, and if you like what you see, you can follow the college. That will add the college to your My Colleges list, where you can keep track of the colleges you're following, applying to, or have applied to. It makes it easy to see all of your colleges organized and laid out. Counselors who have access to the paid version of Score for high schools can also view a student's My Colleges list and suggest colleges that may interest a student, which makes it easier to have that close collaboration. In your My Colleges list, that's where students can also request a letter of recommendation from their students and counselors. Students and counselors can collaborate with any needed documents here as well. As students are looking for colleges, they can also see if the college is hosting any upcoming visits at their school, which is a great way to get to know a school, or you can hop to the Discover tab to see if the college has any upcoming events and easily sign up. Finally, once a student is ready to apply, you can get really helpful financial aid resources in a few places. On a college's page, you can explore the cost and aid section, where you can get cost breakdowns and financial aid averages, such as number of students who receive financial aid. You can also explore any posts a college has made on financial aid. On your dashboard, we'll show you opportunities where students can apply to college for free and see if they're eligible for a fee waiver when they apply right on Score. Finally, if you want more financial aid information, we're also constantly posting helpful resources on the Score blog. And that's an overview of how you can use Score to help you with college prep. You can create a free student account on Score for free at app.score.com/signup. And that's all we have for today. Thank you so much for joining us. We covered questions students and counselors are asking right now, ACT and SAT prep tips and information, letters of recommendation, college list building and college visits, financial aid, and how Score and Test Innovators can help. We'll be sharing a follow-up email after the event today with the recording, as well as some more helpful resources to check out. Thank you again for being here today. Please let us know how we did in the poll that's about to pop up on your screen. We'll be available to answer any questions you may have in the chat for the next 10 minutes. You can also learn more about Test Innovators and Score at the links that we will drop in the chat right now. Thank you again for joining us, and we'll see you next time.